Let's go, y'all. This is Chris McAdoo with the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center, a nonprofit business accelerator located right in the heart of downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, dedicated to changing lives through entrepreneurship. And I am joined by a fellow adventurer in this particular boat of adventures, or like ship, or like a ski of adventures. We'll work on that.
Yeah, all of the above, all the outdoor sports.
We're workshopping that. But Brandon Bruce, the managing director of TechStars Industry of the Future. Brandon, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming into TechStars headquarters here in Knoxville.
Yeah, man. I've listened and have met the companies that are in this cohort, and you're not messing around in terms of the power of the founders, not only in their experience level, but in their ability to see beyond. And their ability to see what is next. You know, so when you came into this is year 3 of the accelerator. What were you expecting, and what were some of your big goals, for this cohort?
So because I'm 6'8", I'll use a basketball analogy.
It makes sense.
So after a winning game, right, the coach was asked, what was the key to that fourth quarter win where you got the bucket at the buzzer? And they said, well, we drew it up this way. Okay, we set a high screen. Then we did the pick and roll. We looked at a lob opportunity. We swung it out to the perimeter, and then recruiting took over. And that's the key, right? So you mentioned the founders already. We have an extraordinary group of founders. You can draw up a lot of really interesting plays in basketball or in entrepreneurship and startups and business, but the key is you won't have the right people. And I think we've got a great group of 10 teams building companies here at TechStars Industries of the Future. And so one of the keys for me coming into the program was, what can I do personally to add value on their journey? Because what they're doing is hard, right? Mm-hmm. It's not easy to start a business from scratch. So what they're trying to do is hard. So what can we do to give them an advantage? And for me personally, it was trying to leverage a lot of the great people that I've met over the last 17 years of being in the Knoxville community and see if we could help them. And so that means a lot of introductions, a lot of connections, a lot of getting out in the community, obviously visiting with our partners in the program, which of course are Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Tennessee Valley Authority, and University of Tennessee. So the founders have gained a lot from those 3 institutions, also from obviously the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center, from the 30 mentors that came in and did Mentor Madness or Mentor Magic, whatever you want to call it, but it was a lot of work. And they came in and gave of their time and energy and kind of opened up their Rolodexes to say, how can we help? I'll give you one example of the Mentor Magic side of the house, which is Jonathan, who you're going to interview later, who runs a company called Orbital Arc, working on an ion thruster to move satellites in space. And so he sat down across from a mentor and said, well, I'm building an ion thruster to move satellites in space. It's a more efficient way to do it. And the investor across the table from him said, oh, that's really interesting. I've invested in an ion thrusting company. That's magic. That does not just happen. It was weird. It was eerie. Because it's like, most people hear ion thrusters, and you got to break it down. Yeah. Like, what are we talking about here? And they just said, oh, tell me more. I've invested in an ion thrusting company. I'd like to learn what you're doing. Maybe I can connect you with them, connect you with the other founders, connect you with opportunities in the federal government. And it was like game time. And that happened over and over again. So that was my hope when the companies came here. And of course, I got to build relationships with them over Zoom and lots of interviews before they came to Knoxville. But once they landed here, it was connecting them so that magic could happen. Some of those connections and opportunities were foreseeable. Like, we knew we want to connect this founder with this mentor in Knoxville. Like, that's going to be an automatic win. But some of it was the magic of just, you don't know what's going to happen, what neurons are going to fire when you connect 2 people together and one says, oh, I know somebody. I went to college with somebody. I should connect you with them. And a lot of that's been happening. I mean, we're in week 8 now. And so, yeah, time flies, but we've made a lot of progress.
Well, and what is the magic to you? I mean, as an entrepreneur yourself in so many endeavors, what is the magic of setting up that white space, that beautiful open space for creative collisions, where, like you say, there's only so much you can plan for, but sometimes it rains.
Right.
Or sometimes the power goes out. You know, it's those kind of things. But, you know, what has been the magic for you in either helping to make those creative collisions happen or them happening for you in your businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of look to the psychology of the dopamine hit, if you will, which, like, a lot of things are going to go wrong. There's going to be a lot of tangents. There's going to be a lot of squirrel chasing. There's going to be some pivots. There's going to be some team dynamics, some prototyping, figuring out a go-to-market strategy, and there's lots of places where that can break down and you have to rebuild it. So then when you land that first customer or get an investor to commit or find a channel partner, like those are huge moments for any company, but certainly for a startup. I mean, getting that first investor, getting those early customers to say, okay, I'll pay you for this pilot. So not only will I provide you feedback, but I see value enough in this and I want to support you. And if it works, it's going to be a game changer for my company. So I want to do a paid pilot with you. And seeing our companies here achieve those milestones along the way, or come in and say, we figured out the science, like the material works. We validated that through a partnership with the lab or the university or TVA is super exciting. Like I think everyone gets excited about that when they come in and meet the founders, but I certainly do.
Yeah. In all of that, you're talking about customers. You're talking about the rubber meeting the road in terms of taking something from an idea, the abstract, and bringing it into the real world, the concrete. What do you see as potential for some of the companies in the TechStars program? Or what would you like to see, for the program as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, one of the words that we used in promoting industries of the future, right? Because people are like, well, what industries exactly are you talking about? And it's like, well, whatever you can envision in the future, right? We're wide open to applications. Our accelerator in particular tends to attract applications from founders that want to work closely with the partners. So they have some intellectual property, many, if not most, have patents. A lot of them have scientific expertise, and they really want to partner with the university, with the lab, with TVA to try to advance their businesses. So, I think the word that we used in the ad, sort of on the website, was transformational. Like, can it change an industry fundamentally? So examples of that would be the ion thruster for actually moving stuff in space. Use your rocket to get it there, but once it's there, how do you move it around? And for most of us, it's like, do they need to move around? And the answer is yes. We've got some biotech companies here where, to use one example, and you've interviewed Lewis already, right? Here's a molecule that could, as he puts it, press pause on death, right? What if you could buy 10 minutes, the most probably important 10 minutes of your life if you've been involved in a traumatic accident, so that you could get to the hospital with enough time for the ER team to work an intervention so that time didn't run out. And so he's working on that. And so you can imagine, like, if that's successful, if that works, if we can get that through FDA into market, that's transformational. I mean, not only would it be obviously a huge business success, but more importantly, his technology in particular would save a lot of people's lives. So it's a huge deal. So it's really exciting. And I think all of the founders have a dimension of that aspect of their business.
Well, that transformational aspect. And I think when you talk about founders, one thing I always enjoy about talking shop with you is that you speak as much about the founders as you do about the businesses. Meaning a lot of these folks, like, this will not be their last rodeo.
No, and for many, as you know, because you've interviewed many of them, it's not their first, right? Some of them have started several companies in the past, so they've been down this road, but it's always a different journey every time. But yes, for many, kind of, once an entrepreneur, probably always an entrepreneur. So for many, this will be one of many companies they start, I suspect. But they've also, all of them in the program have big enough ideas where they could be working on this for many years. These aren't going to be short-term companies. These are companies that are going to take several years to build, and when they're successful, they're going to make a pretty big dent.
Well, in talking about that, patience, that seeing something that maybe someone doesn't see, both as an entrepreneur and as an investor. Yeah. So now, sort of pivot a little bit here to talk about your work in the community as it relates to Knoxville and Market Square Ventures.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about that, like you guys, what I'll call you gave the state of Tennessee the ultimate Christmas present. So tell us a little bit about that, and then lead us into what Market Square Ventures is all about.
At least a Christmas present for the entrepreneurs and the investors in the state of Tennessee. So yeah, we endeavored to start a venture capital fund here about a year and a half ago, but we ran headlong into a state law that basically made it very difficult to do that, almost impossible for those that aren't registered investment advisors. And most folks that start funds typically come into it as entrepreneurs, right? They're very, as you called it before, it's very founder first. They're focused on helping entrepreneurs start and continue to grow in their journey of building companies. And so we worked very closely with the state of Tennessee and with Launch Tennessee to get that state law changed, and it went into effect on Christmas of last year. So once it went into effect, we had a green light to go ahead and launch the fund, which we did in January. And we've got initial investors on board, and we've started making investments. And so, A, it's super exciting. B, 100% focused on founders, right? I mean, the idea, as Dave Chappelle would say, the idea's got to be in the car, right? He got a question from Jerry Seinfeld in Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and he said, if you could take a car ride with anybody, like, who would it be with? And Chappelle's answer was, well, you can take a great car ride with lots of people, but the idea's got to be in the car. Otherwise, you're just taking a drive. And so the key for him was like, yeah, I want an awesome person in the car, but we got to have something to talk about. There's got to be a thing. So for all of the investments that we've made so far, there's definitely that thing there. The idea's in the car. But for us as early stage investors, and I would submit this is true at any stage, but perhaps especially at the early stage, it's definitely a bet on an extraordinary founder. It's finding the right person that has the drive, the passion, the enthusiasm for their idea, and they're going to bust down some walls and see it through.
Well, talk to my audience here about like what it means when you say we started an investment fund. So essentially what you are is a startup yourself.
We are.
And tell me a little bit about that process. What is, for instance, you said a registered investment advisor. There's a lot of terms that I think people may or may not be familiar with. Yeah. It's like, what steps did you guys go through, just like a startup, to build this company?
Yeah, and there's lots of different ways to invest. You can just invest in a company as an individual, so be an angel investor. In our example, we're a committed capital, venture capital fund, which means that investors put money into the fund. So we're really, a good way to describe it is a marketplace. On one side of the marketplace are investors, and on the other side of the marketplace are founders starting companies. And so as a marketplace, our goal is to make matches. And we as general partners, there's 5 of us, do that matching. So we're talking with a lot of founders, reviewing a lot of pitches, and at the same time, obviously talking with investors and making sure that we're serving them well. So the key for us, marketplaces, and a great commentator on marketplaces is a guy named Andrew Chen, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, previously at Dropbox and then at Uber. And he talks about, he has a book with this title called The Cold Start Problem, which is when you go to start anything, and he's especially an expert in marketplaces, you kind of have a cold start. Like, what do you start with? Supply? Demand? It only gets interesting when you have the co-occurrence of supply and demand, and then it's magic, and marketplace can be very powerful, right? Think eBay or Craigslist, or for that matter, Dropbox or Uber, or places where it's connecting 2 sides together. For us, the key was we want to make sure we had deal flow, right? Are there great founders to invest in? Because we principally want to invest here in our area, in our community, in Knoxville, in Oak Ridge, in East Tennessee, the state, and then beyond that, kind of regionally and in Appalachia. Those are kind of our target areas. We can invest anywhere, but that's where we're seeking to invest the most. And at the same time, we wanted to understand if there was appetite among investors to do that. And thankfully, the answer has been yes on both sides. We've been really happy with the startups, the founders that we've been meeting just over the last few months, and we've already made 3 investments, and we've got several on the horizon, and also with the response that we've gotten from folks that are eager to back those founders.
That's awesome. So we're recording this on May 1st, 2024. You've made 3 investments so far. Who have you invested in thus far?
Yeah, so we've invested in John Derrick's company here in Knoxville called Authentrix AI. The short version of Authentrix is an MRI for AI, right? So if you want to understand how a functional system is working in your body, you might do an MRI to sort of see how it's actually operating. Right now, in the landscape of artificial intelligence, you take a data set, you train it, creates a neural network, you ask it a question, you get an answer back. But if you were to ask, why did I get that answer back? In most instances, it would be like, I'm not really sure. It's a little bit of a black box. And so Authentrix is really designed to let's scan that and try to get a better understanding for where the answer is coming from. Why did it come up with that answer? Do we like that answer? Do we not like that answer? And how might we train or tweak or change the model? And so obviously super important for enterprises that are now building or adopting AI and trying to figure out, is this something we can rely on? And how should we build it properly? So responsible AI. So excited about backing John and his team. Obviously, very successful founder with several exits, has run many companies, and we're lucky to have him here in Knoxville, and we're excited to back him and his company. And then we invested in a company called Verify, which is based in Nashville. They won the 3686 Entrepreneurship Festival pitch competition last fall. That's where I first met Dave, one of the co-founders. Was super impressed by him and his pitch, and so kind of built the relationship following that conference. Tried to be helpful, make some introductions and connections, and so we were lucky to be able to basically finish out their seed round, which they closed here in the spring. So that Verify, for those that aren't familiar with it yet, is a pet vaccination verification service. So right now, if you were to take your dog to a groomer, the groomer would call or fax. You got to like that. Anytime fax is involved, there's an opportunity for technology. Your groomer would call or fax the vet and ask them, has Fido been vaccinated for rabies or any other current diseases that are out there, in case the groomer gets bitten or something like that. Rather than do the phone call or the fax, he's built a web service, right, that hits the APIs of the popular customer relationship management platforms that veterinarian clinics use. Nice. And so he's able to build a marketplace on that basis, and they've got a great running start. So we're really excited to work with Dave and his team. And then we back Laurel Orley and her team running a consumer packaged goods company in Nashville called Daily Crunch. And if you're ever here in the office, you'll get to experience Daily Crunch because we stock the office with their snacks because they're so delicious. Like, the team here goes through them so fast. It's ridiculous. They have sprouted almond snacks. Lots of different flavors. I would say in the office here, the resounding favorites have been Nashville Hot.
Okay.
So the founders like the spicy sprouted almonds. We also like the berry mix. They've got a really cool new flavor they released, a dill pickle. And then they've got a turmeric and sea salt. Those are the ones that we go through like super fast. So those are the three companies that we back so far, and we got several more coming.
Well, and we're proud from the KEC side of things that Authentrix is actually in our Work Summer Accelerator program. Yeah. John and his team actually were teaming up Authentrix with RegScale's Travis Howerton and the chief technology officer for the county, actually Zach Webb. So we're really excited to.
That's a power team.
Bring a lot of folks together.
I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's a great team, right? There's gonna be a lot of learning in both directions. Yeah. On that one, so we're excited to see what happens this summer.
And to sort of put a bow tie on everything, when people are watching this or listening to this, I think that still investment or quote unquote VCs, all that is sometimes a completely foreign language. Yeah. And there is a sexiness to it. There is a TV, there's a Shark Tank-ness to it, right? There's a sexiness to it.
Shark Tank brought that probably.
But but really what it comes down to is sound business principles. Do you have a thing? Does that thing work? Can you talk about it effectively and efficiently? Are you passionate about what you are doing? To that effect, we talk with a lot of people about that effective pitch and what that means. What would you say are the top one or two things that immediately make you say no thank you? So start there, but then tell me about the thing that always gets at least a meeting or a seat at the table.
Yeah, I mean the easy no thank yous are simply it's not now because it's not ready. Okay. Right. It's incomplete, or it's just not well done, not properly done. Right. So even just an intro email rife with spelling and grammar mistakes, like it's just not got the juice. Right. It's not going to happen. So those are pretty easy to just kind of hard pass on straight away because it's like that's going to be really difficult. For them to make progress in a market where a recipient of those emails is going to value that. And it's like, it's a rough start. On the flip side, a fast yes, I'd like to learn more. The short version is this a founder that can sell.
Okay.
Right? And so as you look at any type of company, can the founder sell? And so when you sort of unpack that, it means, can they take this to market and sell a customer? But even in the near term, if they're still, let's say, developing the product, maybe they're pre-revenue, can they sell to an investor? Can they sell to a potential co-founder that they want to bring on board, or an early hire? As Randy Boyd would remind us, at UT, we teach our ABCs, always be closing. And so it's like, can this founder close?
Yeah.
Right? Do they have a good approach? Can they teach? And then can they land a deal? And I think that's critical for all companies, full stop. But certainly at the early stage, it's just hard to get past that cold start if you don't get some yeses. And to get some yeses, you got to be selling early and often.
Yeah.
And so certainly that's a focus here as we run the accelerator, but it's certainly something that we, and I suspect all investors, certainly early stage investors, are looking for is a founder, a CEO that can sell from day one.
To close things out, you've been involved from so many different directions with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just here in Knoxville, but in Tennessee and in the Southeast. What do you see as, what do you hope for in the future here?
Huge opportunity for our area. I think it applies to any area. It certainly applies here, is for all of us to exercise the muscle around supporting business. And for all of us, that typically means look for companies that are starting here and growing here and buy from them. Yeah. I mean, you see all the stickers in retail, so that's the easiest one to remember because it says, hey, buy local, right? We're a local Knoxville company, buy here. And that I think is something that a lot of us are pretty used to, and we try to support as many stores as we can here. But it's useful to extend that argument and say, if someone's building brand new software, best possible thing you can do for them, mentorship is awesome. Investing in them is super useful. Maybe joining their team, right? I mean, all those are huge commits. Yeah. But something that anybody can do, buy the software. Or if it's pre-revenue, try it. Yeah. Try it out and provide feedback to them. Like being an early user or an early customer of whatever the product is, if it's software, a new device, and being willing to actually spend time on it. Because I think one of the hardest things for an early stage founder is you get a combination of a lot of no's, right? Mm-hmm. You're crazy to do this. You had a stable job. Why did you jump ship to try this thing? It's probably not going to work out. Look at the risk. So sort of a lot of no's. And on the flip side, you also get a lot of yeses. Good for you. You should build that. I mean, if you want to do it, you should absolutely do it, right? Because that person doesn't want to be the one saying no. It's like, go get them, Tiger. But it's like, okay, once the cheerleading is over and the dust settles, are you willing to sit with them and say, okay, let's actually unpack this? Are you willing to look at their app, their device, their invention, and say, here's really honest feedback. I like this aspect of it. This is why I wouldn't buy it. Mm-hmm. I don't like this. It's not good enough yet. And be willing to have that conversation, because that level of honesty is the most useful thing to those founders. Because if you just cheerlead, oh yeah, keep going, that's awesome, that's awesome, and it turns out not to be true, then yikes, right? They burned a lot of time, and time is their advantage. They got to move fast because they're early. They can pivot fast. They're nimble, so they can outrun the competition. That time is their advantage, and so how do we amplify the time that they have? And it's spending some of our time with them. And as soon as they're ready to sell, take that small risk of being an early customer. I mean, it's just invaluable, because a lot of times people will come and they'll ask you or me or others that are involved in startups and say, how can I help? And what they're envisioning is mentorship. That can be a big commit. Mm-hmm. It's awesome if you've got the time to do it. Or they think about, maybe I could invest at some point. Maybe I'll start my own company. All those are great things to do. You should do all of them. But at the earliest possible stage, buy stuff.
All right.
As soon as someone launches, just say, oh, great, I just bought.
And for everybody, this actually is something that I'll sort of soapbox on the art and creative side. If you enjoy an artist, if you enjoy a musician, you know what you do to support them? You buy the ticket. Yeah. You don't get on the guest list.
Right.
You buy a ticket and you buy two for your friends, and you go to the show. and you
huge.
show up.
We all know this intrinsically for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We know like, oh man, I remember my first customer. It was so-and-so, and they bought a thing, and that meant the world to me because it was literal market validation, right? If you're looking for a semblance of product market fit, you're looking for people to exchange money for the value that your product or service delivers, and that's magic. I mean, it helps them in every possible way. It's revenue, helps attract investors, helps them pay their bills. You're probably going to leave a review, and it's probably going to be really positive because you've spent money on it. And so all the good things flow from that. So yes, whether it's a creator building in Maker City, or it's someone doing software, or it's a founder in an accelerator, buy their stuff.
Y'all, thank you so much. Brandon, Bruce, go out and buy the ticket.
Buy the ticket. Trademark.